This is the Beyond Data Management podcast powered by HS GovTech. Now here's your host, Cameron Garrison.
Welcome back all across the H Nation. Did you miss us? The little bit of a break there between the two seasons. The last time that we came to you from here, we had it. The halls were decked for the holidays, and we're really happy to be back for season 2. We have a lot of exciting things in the hopper that we're going to do this year. We're going to try to stretch sort of the boundaries from where we were on season 1, do a lot of exciting things. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the episode, give you some preview of some of the things that are coming up. But great to be back with you here in 2026. And so one of the things that happened over the last 2.5 months or so is that we had quite a backlog in you all's questions, feedback, comments, and ideas for shows. First of all, thank you. Keep them coming. We love hearing from you all. So we thought we'd kick off season 2 with sort of Ask the Inspector, and we'll take a few hot topics that have been raised by you all across the H Nation, and we will go into it. Now, I only play an expert at this on TV, so we needed an actual expert. So we welcome in virtually to the Beyond Data Management podcast studio, Kristin Geary, HS GovTech's own. She actually was on in season 1 for an episode, you may remember, all the way back in the summer. So it's been about 6-7 months since we've seen you. Kristin, welcome back. How you been?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. A little tired today, so it is. We recorded just a couple of days ahead of when this one drops on Tuesday, and was at the ACC tournament last night watching Duke win and Carolina lose. So, and
that's fun.
I would say though, that David, I know you're a huge sports fan over there in the booth. I didn't think Duke looked like a number 1 ranked national team last night, but. Not a sports show. I won't take us down that rabbit hole. I know you've been really busy. You've got some really big agencies that you're working with right now. So I'm really happy that you could join us. So what we'll do here today is we are going to reach into that mailbag, and we're going to talk about some fun topics that we were asked to cover here on the show. It's amazing how many questions there are in states all across the country. So if you are ready, we will go to that big old bag of questions and play Ask the Inspector.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
All right, up first.
I'm ready.
We are starting with food truck woes. And actually, I think it was like episode 5 in season 1, way back. We actually did a whole episode on food trucks. And she's actually been on here before with questions. That Beach 7866, I will always recognize that screen name instantly. She goes, I just spent all morning issuing permit suspensions, sounds like quite a few of them there, to mobile food units after discovering that they lost their commissary agreements, that all of them lost their commissary agreements, go figure. If I wasn't the only food inspector for 2 counties, I would be cracking down so much on these food trucks. They're hard to keep up with, along with other job duties. Anybody else struggling with their food trucks? Now, I know that this is actually a pretty common pain point, isn't it? Food trucks are always a difficult thing for agencies to get their arms around.
They are. The commissary issue is definitely a concern because even if they have the commissary agreement, which they're required to have, they are also required to use the commissary. But proving that they use the commissary is a whole nother topic. And so it's a very big pain point for those of us who really care about our profession and care about keeping people safe, because there are a lot of problems that can come into play that a lot of food truck owners don't even realize or understand. They often get into it because you can do it. I think they're really expensive, but compared to like a brick and mortar building, a lot of times they feel like a food truck is more doable. But oftentimes we'll have people that have no food safety experience.
Yep.
And there's no oversight and there's nobody to help them and guide them. They're just oftentimes just a single person who wants to serve people, and they think it sounds like a fun idea, and they go out, they get a commissary agreement, but it's so much easier to make it at home or to try to do everything on the truck. and it's just not feasible to do it in a safe manner. But our problem as inspectors is we have to be able to prove. We can only write up what we actually see happening. And so we become investigators, but there's only so much time for that as well.
There's so more to do than there is ever hours in the day. And yeah, food trucks are expensive, but you're right. The fixed cost a lot lower than a brick and mortar permanent store. And also there's a big problem with illegal vending, right? And so it's not so expensive when you kind of rig together ghetto style things, and you see that, and they're cooking hot dogs on top of like these weird bins that they've put a griddle on top of. We have a lot of people who are also watch that are just interested in the subject matter but aren't in the industry. So maybe just for those folks, maybe quickly just run through what is the commissary structure that was referenced in the question that you're talking about. Probably help folks that aren't familiar with it understand just why it is so tricky.
So a commissary, really, it's essentially just a commercial kitchen. It can be a commercial kitchen anywhere. It's got to be inspected and approved. And there are some really, really great commissaries out there that are set up specifically for food trucks. And they have the proper equipment. They have a good way for people who are using the commissary to separate their food, keep their food secure from others, because you can't just have random people having access to your food. And then there are, I knew of a few restaurants who would say, we'll share our kitchen with you. You can come in at the end of the day and use our commissary or use our kitchen as a commissary. But I had a hard time really believing that those commercial kitchens had room for the food trucks to come in and do what they would need to do. And then you also have the issue of having the proper places to dump your grease and to dump your like your gray water tanks and things off the food trucks. You had to have a way to get clean water and make sure that water was clean. And so there were a lot of concerns with just using a kitchen, just a random commercial kitchen as your commissary.
When you were doing food trucks, was illegal vending a big problem? Because I know, especially in really big cities, that they will have lots of issues with, you could go down any area where there's a lot of food trucks, and if you really wanted to, you could probably shut down and kick out quite a few of them in certain areas.
Yeah, there are. We would have festivals where people would show up with food already made in the trunks of their vehicle and start selling food out of the back of their trunk. We had to be on the lookout and keep our eyes open. Because if you don't keep your eyes open and sometimes we would be there because we would have one vendor doing what they were supposed to do. And then we would see 3 vendors who had no permits and we knew nothing about. And then we'd have to go visit each one of them and then do our own little investigation of what are they doing? How are they doing it? Where was the food prepared? Are they doing it on site? Is it at temperature? And then make them get the proper permits if they had what they needed to safely prepare the food.
So you were in Missouri, still are, when you were still are heavily involved in the Environmental Health Association there for the state. What would you all do if you did have a chronic problem with someone who was illegally vending and you had to go out to shut it down? Did you go out with a police escort? Because we get a lot of questions about that. It's a topic of conversation. Some agencies, the inspectors are a little nervous, especially in certain areas of a jurisdiction, about going in there alone and having to be the people to tell them you can't be here anymore. How did you handle that in the past?
So typically I had one particular food truck vendor that comes to mind. They were very angry with me, but they just had a box truck. There was no plumbing. There was no permanent fixtures. There was no hand washing. There was nothing on their truck, but they had brought in a refrigerator. They were running off of I don't even think it had any refrigeration. It just had a food warmer. But anyway, I caught them at like 3 different times out running, and I was the problem. They were very mad at me because I just didn't understand. And they were making food at home and putting in food warmers, and the food was out of temp. And I would talk to them, and then I would go find whoever hired them to be where they were at, because they were basically at one time I caught them, they were at a school, like a college. The college had invited food trucks to come in periodically, and I just happened to find them there. And so we went, and nothing was right. So we shut them down. And then I think I found them in another festival that they showed up at. They didn't have what they needed at that time, because every time I ran into him, and somehow it was always me, it escalated. So the second time I took my supervisor with me, and I'm like, they don't have what they need. It's a box truck. There's no hand washing. I told them the last time, I gave them a long list of everything they needed in order to operate, and they're still trying to operate without a permit. So he went with me that time. And then the last time I ran into them, they had upgraded their truck. They actually had the right equipment, and they thought they were in the neighboring county. And so they thought they were like, this is really this is Jackson. Yeah, this is Jackson County. And so that time they actually were allowed to get a permit and pay the late fees. I think it was like a $55 permit and then a $30 or $40 late fee on top of it. So for not getting their permits in advance. But at least at that point, everything was prepackaged, and all they were doing was warming like frozen chicken fingers up and making in waffles from a powdered mix, like just add water type. So they didn't really have anything on the truck that was being prepared freshly. So it ended up being okay, and we were able to get them a permit.
So, spare a thought for the people that ate from that. It takes a brave soul to go order food from the back of ostensibly a U-Haul truck.
Pretty much, yeah.
So we'll go, David, let's go actually shuttle ahead to question 3. This one actually is a lot of fun. It's regarding complaints. And this one comes to us from Confident Wash 3490. And sorry, David, we just skipped one there, just that one after it, because this one's a lot more juicy, I think. So we'll pull that one up here. It's about fake complaints at food establishments. And I will read that one for you here. We constantly get food complaints that are disgruntled ex-employees or their parents. So put a pin to come back to that, or their parents. Wow. Really old. They'll send really old video footage from months or even years ago of things that have been handled in the past. They'll tell lies, send in things that are unfounded. We are a tiny rural health department with 2 inspectors. So, yeah, they don't have a lot of time to fool around. And we are constantly dealing with food safety complaints that are literally completely bogus and vengeful on various establishments. How do you all across the H Nation handle this? It's wasting so much of our time and resources, and it's burning us out and makes it hard to nail down what's a legitimate concern and what's being used as revenge by an ex-employee. And then we had to censor it there at the end. He says, I'm an experienced inspector, and in my second county, and this recent current county is unbelievable with complaints on petty failed bull, you fill in the blank. How big of a problem is this, Kristin, where people just make stuff up, waste health department's time to try to settle a score?
Well, I found that if you make it really easy on them to submit a complaint, then there's a lot of keyboard warriors out there who will do it. But there are also a lot of people who will who will call up and complain. Parents, I've had parents complain. I've had ex-employees call up and say, and this was an establishment. I just happened to catch the phone that day, and it was an establishment I knew very, very well. And the complaint was, I'm the only person who ever washed my hands, and there's a pile of dirt that they would not allow me to clean up, and it's been there for months. And I'm not mad at them. I just felt like it was time, but I got fired yesterday, but I'm not mad at them.
No relation, coincidental timing.
Yeah. So, I mean, I did not expect to find a problem with that place. As long as it wasn't anonymous, our policy was we go out and we look at every complaint. But I have worked with a couple of jurisdictions that tend to use phone calls and emails for things that are not like considered a high risk. And so, a dirty floor is a low priority or a core violation versus a high priority or violation.
There's so many things kicking around my mind on this. Let's go to the parents thing, because it's interesting, because Confident Wash 3490 mentioned that parents will take up their children's cause. You said that you've gotten calls from parents before too. What on earth? What's the hook? Why are they even, how do they even start that conversation? And what's your personal experience with that, where parents take up for their wayward children?
I have opinions. We have a lot of helicopter parents. We have a lot of parents who don't know how to let their kids grow up and learn how to be productive adults. And so they want to save their kids from everything and not allow their children to, I guess I'm repeating myself, grow up and become productive adults. We have a lot of adults running around whose parents are still directing their daily lives. And so I think that, it's not just in food service, it's everywhere. And I think that they're doing their kids a disservice. But these are my opinions, and that's not really food safety related. It's just that, there's no way to know. It's a picture in time. When somebody calls up and complains, it's their word against the operator's word, and all we can do is go in, talk to the operator, make sure the operator understands what's necessary, what the complaint was, how they should they run into whatever situation was being complained about, how would they handle it? You can ask a lot of questions and find out what their policies are, and that's really all you can document. I know it talked about sending in old video footage and things that have happened in the past, and all you can document is current conditions.
The parent thing is crazy. By the way, this is a trend. That's why that one really caught my attention. Yeah. By the way, you've had to deal with it, so you have a right to an opinion on it. But just recently, there was a study published in a bunch of news articles just recently on it, that 25% of Gen Z, which is, I think we play sort of fast and loose on the fringes with generations, but technically 18 to 27-year-olds. So on the high end of that, should be a grown adult by the time you get to 26, 27. But 25% have taken a parent to a job interview. So it didn't really surprise me that they would call and file a false complaint, because I just can't imagine. We grew up in a different time, didn't we? I would have been mortified if one of my parents, whom I love dearly, but wanted to go to a job interview with me. That would have been so embarrassing. But apparently 1 out of 4 don't feel that way anymore.
No, and you also have to take into consideration these are a lot of times teenagers, sometimes grown adults, but a lot of times they're teenagers that are working their first job, and they are not always responsible people, especially if they have a helicopter parent who's not taught them to be responsible. And when they get fired from a job, or they lose their job, or they get written up, or whatever the case may be, they've got to come up with a good story to tear the parent. And it's always going to be somebody else's fault.
That's right. They're always humans in general always have a problem with trying to be the hero of their own story. And with the complaints too, AI is, I believe, and we're starting to hear evidence of this out there, it's another thing departments are going to have to contend with, because the inspector that asked that question talked about how people would take a video from a couple years ago and send it in as if it was fresh. But with AI now, you can literally just give it prompts and create all sorts of horrific violations made to order and send it in. Are you hearing in your community that you're actively involved in, especially there in Missouri? Have you heard any examples of that happening yet? Because if not, it's coming, right?
Yeah, I suspect it's coming, and it's probably happened. I haven't caught up with my coworkers or my the colleagues from my previous position in the last few months, and so I'm not for sure. They haven't mentioned anything last time I got together with them, but I imagine that it's just right on the horizon.
Yes, indeed. So, all right. So we will, by the way, Confident Wash, great name. Thank you for the question, and y'all keep them coming. In fact, why don't we just quickly let you know, we love to hear from you on the show, and it's very easy to get a hold of us. You can comment, whatever platform you're on, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, etc. You can put a question or comment. Those are always fun to go through, and also to get the conversation started on the episode. But you can also email us at beyond@hscloudsuite.com. Beyond@hscloudsuite.com. We read everyone. We reply to everyone. And when you send ones like we've been talking about today, we'll put you on the air in a future episode. So, all right, we'll go to another one here. Keep it moving. And Kristin will go. This one's a little more maybe esoteric, but I thought an interesting question. So this is from Calf Killer. So I'm not sure if that's this person's name or reputation. Confused on date marking requirements for pickled or brined/brined foods. I can't seem to find any clear documentation, Calf Killer says, on the date marking requirements for foods that are pickled and brined. Different people seem to have different opinions within my own department, in such that some people glance at date markings on items like pickled chips or pickled jalapenos, while others have a firm toss-out or embargo throwaway policy on any of the items without a date marking. I'm fairly new to the food safety program. I was under the impression these types of foods could be left open in a cooler for longer periods of time and would be fine. In my home fridge, I still have a jar of pickle spears from about 6 months ago, and I still eat on them occasionally, grazing on those pickle spears there. I've read the exemptions. They don't mention pickled foods. Does that mean they have to get discarded 6 days after opening too? So again, it's sort of a fringe case, I guess, right? From that perspective, because you think of pickled and canned foods, preppers, right? Or back in the in the days, the family garden, you'd bring in the harvest, you'd can it, and it would last for years. So, what is it though specifically when it's opened? Are there rules or guidelines?
So the code that they're referring to for date marking indicates that it has to be a ready to eat, which a pickle would be ready to eat, but it also has to be a TCS food, which is time temperature control for safety food. And so the question we're really asking is, are the pickles a TCS food? If they're commercially prepared, they have a pH of less than 4.6, and there's actually a table in the code that will that tells you, like, based on pH and water activity, whether an item is considered TCS. And so the table indicates that if it's a 4.6 or lower, it is not a TCS food, therefore it is exempt from date marking.
Wow. That's why we do ask the inspector. So there is a way to know.
Yeah. It took me a long time to figure that out myself, that sometimes you have to pick apart the code and the title of the code, because it doesn't specifically say pickles, but when you start looking at it and it's time temperature control for safety food, a TCS food date marking, that's where you have to start investigating to figure out whether you're looking at TCS foods. And just what I thought was interesting, and I learned well after I think I had written this up as a violation, prepared salads that are like tacos, not taco salad, like pasta salads, potato salads that are prepared in a commercially processed facility are also exempt from those date marking, because their pH is typically lower enough, I guess, which that surprised me, because I felt like I won't eat those. I limit the days. I won't eat those after they've been open for a few days.
I'm leery of them when they're fresh too. It's like gas station sushi, and just suspicious of it.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's in there. I don't know the science behind it, other than I think I read that it is typically the pH on most of those commercially processed food salads are less than 4.6. And
Wow.
so they will inhibit the growth of the bacteria that they're trying to prevent from making you sick. So
I learned something. That is an interesting question. Calf killer, great question. Like you literally went to one where there was an answer, and that's why we're doing Ask the Expert, ask the inspector here. That was a fun one. So calf killer, great name. Thank you so much for the question. Let's take a quick little intermission break here, and we are coming up now that we are in March on conference season all around the country. Nation, they kind of cluster in spring and then go a couple big national ones in the summer, and then there's a big fall batch. But we are going to be at several of them, or I will be, coming up soon. So you guys are, if you're watching this the day it's released here on Tuesday, tomorrow, I will be in Idaho, Boise, Idaho, at the Idaho Annual Educational Conference, Environmental Health Conference, and we'll be speaking there, giving a keynote. And if you remember, we had Bonnie on last fall, and she was heading that conference up, and looking forward to seeing all of you fine folks up in Idaho. Literally tomorrow. I've got a long flight ahead of me. And then on the 23rd and the 26th, we will be in beautiful San Diego, California at the Coupa conference. And for those of you that aren't in California, Coupa is the program for hazmat that is specific and unique to California. And we'll be speaking there on Monday morning, March the 23rd. And also really wanted to mention quickly, on April the 2nd, we're going to be going and doing something really fun. We got invited to do a keynote and be a panelist on AI and emerging technologies for public health. And it's going to be at Bowling Green University in Bowling Green, Ohio. And they're doing a public health summit. And AI is one of the preeminent topics there. And so if you are anywhere in the greater Ohio, Indiana, Michigan area, they'd love to see you there. I'd love to see you there, and really looking forward to that summit there on April 2nd. So, all right, Kristin, now that we've got all of those shameless plugs in the way, I feel like almost a comedian saying, I'll be playing Reno on... But definitely a busy travel schedule coming up. All right, let's go to the next one here. And we have another question for Ask the Inspector directly from the audience. And one of the things I've loved is as season one progressed, we started getting a lot more non-inspectors that would ask questions that they wanted an inspector to answer. It's been one of the fun unintended things that's evolved, is we have a lot of you all that are actually in environmental health. But, you know, I've always said that, especially in the food program, what environmental health does touches on one of the most intimate things out there. Because if you think about food, you go have a stranger, perfect stranger, whose mommy is going to call and defend him when he screws up. And you're trusting that perfect stranger to prepare something that you're going to put in your body. It's like ultimate in trust. And so I think it's one of the reasons that the topics from here and what the work you all do is resonates so much with the general public. But we have one here. We're going to take one from a non-environmental health person, and definitely think they probably picked this name, Peanut Butter Brian. These names just crack me up. Peanut Butter Brian says, mice help. My job, so he works in a food establishment. My job has a mice problem. For the last 2 years, we've been told to ignore it. This is a oh, wow, he name checked it. This is a Trader Joe's. So you're paying a premium for the mice problem. A retail store, there is pee and, oh, he didn't censor that, poop, mice feces, so to speak, and eaten food every single day in this particular store. I can't do it anymore. It feels like every time a health inspector comes, we are pre-warned and air quote or quote unquote fix, aka hide the problems. Is there always a pre-warning for a business? So that one really caught my attention, Kristin. Peanut Butter Brian, thank you for the question. First of all, I thought of you, because I remember, a few months ago when you were on the operator that tried to convince you that mice droppings around their establishment were actually just sesame seeds.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you haven't forgotten it because you lived it. But the thing that's interesting, and I'm not sure, we don't know from peanut butter brine there, what state or city they're in. But generally in environmental health, all of these inspections are announced. So did it give you pause to hear that the thrust of his question was he thinks they're getting tipped off and kind of just put lipstick on the pig just to pass the inspection?
No, well, they should not be announced. Routine inspection should be a surprise inspection, but we typically go on a schedule. And so, you get a 3-month inspection, a 6-month inspection, a quarterly inspection, a yearly inspection. They all know that if they're getting a yearly inspection, we normally come in February. We normally come in August or whatever. And so they have a roundabout expectation of when we should come. But it could also be operators are really good about when we walk in the door. They call, especially in a grocery store, they call the manager up and say, health inspector's here, or they know you. And so they see you before you see them. And they immediately they send 2 managers around the store to clean up everything they can possibly. And it doesn't matter if it's a grocery store or a restaurant or whatever. They like to make you wait until they're ready for you.
Really? Are they allowed to do that? So that's fascinating. So it sounds like it happens a lot. What's the rules say strictly about that? And do you just normally wait quite politely, or do you push back?
It depends on the situation. Typically we'll wait politely for a couple of minutes. But if, they make you wait a long time, then you know what's going on. I had an FDA, sat through an FDA class, and they said, let them go fix those things because they're not going to catch everything. And then you can pay attention, instead of paying attention to, the first thing they all did was go switch out the sanitizer, because if the sanitizer is weak, then they get written up for having weak sanitizer. She said, let them go do it, because those are things that they're doing regularly, and most of the time it's fine. She said you can then pay attention to the really big issues. You can really dig in deep, because all of the superficial, easy, quick things to find, they take care of for you. They know it, and you can then work on things that they are missing. Mouse droppings, if it's that bad, you're not going to miss every one of them.
You're not going to get them all right, and you're also not going to here, mice, follow this cheese. You're not going to get a bunch of an infestation out, no matter how long they make you wait, right?
Yeah, you're not. You will find it if you're doing a good job as an inspector. You're going to find it. A good bright flashlight really, really, really helps with that. But the other thing they can do is talk to the inspector. I've had establishments, I always tried to talk to staff if I could. And there are some managers that kind of freak out and send staff off, and they don't want the inspector to be talking to the staff. But if I had many times where staff would come to me or try to sneak to me, as soon as I kind of picked up that they were wanting to say something that didn't feel like they could, I was sneaking my business card and saying, email me or call me. And because if you have somebody that really truly cares and sees what's going on, because we can't see everything, you can't be everywhere. And I'm sure that a lot of them are very effectively hiding things that could potentially be a problem. And it's all about keeping their clients safe. And so they really should be using the inspector to help themselves get better and not just trying to hide things. Because if they were honest and they were using their inspector and they were doing what needed to be done, they could take care of that infestation without having, without having to shut down, and without being, putting their inspector in a position that makes them the bad guy. The best management that I ever worked with were the ones that were teach me, educate me. What can I do? What else can I do? If I find something that is an issue, there are a lot of things you can do for mouse infestations. And there are times that as long as you're taking all the steps necessary to minimize the presence of those pests, you're following the rules of the food code. If there are things like you're not having regular pest management come in, and you've got a problem, and you don't have additional treatments made, then that's where you fall into trouble, and then the problem gets worse and worse.
So peanut butter. By the way, so sounds like you do sometimes develop, for lack of a better term, confidential sources coming out of facilities. I'm guessing if you see a motivational poster on the wall in a grocery store, "Stitches get stitches," you're handing out a few extra business cards.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's funny you say that about signage, because signage, as an inspector, you learn a lot if you pay attention to the signage around places.
Interesting. What do you mean by that?
I had a place that had salads, and they had a sign posted that said, "Just because the salad is old doesn't mean the tomatoes. You need to pick the cherry tomatoes out of the salad before you throw it away."
They had a sign for that?
Yep, they had a sign for that.
Wow.
It said, "Think like an owner. Save money," or something like that. And then I found another sign in another place that was making pizza dough, and they had a sign above the mixer. It's a great big commercial mixer, and it said, "Be careful when you use this, because sometimes metal shavings fall in the dough."
Oh, jeez.
The manager said, "I don't know where that sign came from. I don't know anything about that. I was like, "You can't use it. It's, you can't use it. You gotta go have it prepared."
And also a picture of that sign in Discovery, if somebody got injured and sued them over a metal shaving, that would be kind of impossible to defend against. That's
absolutely
interesting. So Peanut Butter Brian, actually, also one other thought. You mentioned that, so if they're being tipped off for real, that's not appropriate. But you're right, because things go in cycles. Some people are just really attuned to it and predict it within a few days. But doesn't that actually underscore? So HS GovTech is the underwriting sponsor and presenter of this. The right technology helps with that as well, right? Because if you have a system that can do more algorithmic or scheduling based on risk and things, that becomes a lot harder to actually clock it if you're an operator, doesn't it? So systems matter.
It does. Yeah, no, it does. Having the ability to manage, and you can see very easily. I was there in March of this year, so maybe I'm scheduled in September, but I'm going to show up in August, or something along those lines. It makes it easy for an inspector to kind of track where they've been, when they were there, and try to change it up.
That makes sense. Peanut Butter Brian, thanks for the question. So they're not supposed to be tipped off if that's actually happening, but I would ask you to think, are you actually are they asking you to be part of a stall the inspector at the front of the store? And if that's the case, it may just be that, but you can always reach out to your county or your local health department as well. If the mice, I almost gave them rats, mice, I guess a little less scary. But if that's a problem, call your local department and let them know what you're actually seeing, because I know most of the environmental health professionals around the country take those types of calls seriously. So that was a great one. Thanks for the question, Peanut Butter Brian. We'll move up to the next one here. This was actually fun. So it's Buttercup 72. These names are great. Storing single-use cups and lids in the bathroom. So this is another one from just a non-EH professional question. I work at a cafe as a full-time employee, and my manager was recently let go, i.e. fired. Wonder if his mama called. He is very disgruntled over this, which is fair, but he was genuinely not a good manager. Our upper manager who fired him is not based in the city I live in. He says he's from Orlando, Mickey Mouse country. Thus, we will no longer really have a store manager, and we just have to communicate via text. So I guess they're going to the Dollar Tree model at this store, which is one person, and we wish you Godspeed. During my last shift, I moved all of the boxes out of the bathroom. They were storing single-use cups and lids. They did say they were, in a cardboard box, but they were storing them as a storage space in the bathroom. This person took it upon themselves, Buttercup 72 did, to remove them all and try to get them into a storage room. and make sure not to block or any existing exits or entrances to our coolers or fridges, the walk-ins. Since then, it's been he's been getting sent intimidating texts trying to find out who removed the boxes from the bathroom because apparently they were instructed by upper management to keep them there. Do I have any leverage here at all? What do I say to these folks at corporate? This seems unsanitary, even if they're still in cardboard boxes. So that was interesting, Kristin. This person, obviously, first of all, Buttercup, sounds like you really care. Sounds like I'm talking to a date in high school. Buttercup, you care. But they're getting yelled at for moving them. So is this one of those things, Kristin, that's a violation but is not as gross as it sounds? So what's the actual sort of proper guidance on cups and lids in the bathroom?
So the code is very clear. It says no storage of food or food-related items, including single service, in a bathroom. It also says no storage under dripping lines, under sewage lines, under even dripping like sprinkler heads. You can't store food or single service paper products, things like that there. It doesn't say only if it's closed, it's okay. It doesn't say it could be in an enclosed cabinet. It says it cannot be in the bathroom. So very clear. That's what the code says. Is it worth losing your job over? Not necessarily, but it might be worth a call just to say, this is what I'm seeing. And this would be one where the inspector would be like, take it and pay attention. Maybe, if it's not your policy to go out on every single complaint, maybe that's one where you could say, I'm going to address this at the next inspection.
That makes sense, yeah, because it's not an imminent health hazard, right? But to Buttercup's question, do I have any leverage here? I would say that they do, right? And the leverage is just simply explaining to corporate that I moved them because of this section of the food code. We were in violation, so I was trying to help us. And I tell you what, Buttercup, what we'll do is we will reach out to you and send you the reference section from the food code so that you can use it. But it's interesting you say maybe not worth getting fired over, but definitely worth at least stating that they had a good reason for doing it. Yeah.
And I mean, I would typically, for myself, when I document, I like to document in writing. So I would just email them so that you have a copy of your email saying, I did it because this section, which is 44111 of the food code, says that food and single service may not be stored in a bathroom. And that's why I moved it. And then it's clear why you did it. If they override you, that's,
it's what it is.
Is it worth losing your job? You got to make that decision yourself.
Everybody has a boss.
Yeah.
Sometimes not good ones.
And sometimes they make terrible choices and they don't care what the health inspector says because they want something a certain way. And until the health inspector writes them up 3 times and starts charging them for re-inspections, they're not gonna listen.
Yeah. Some people
once it starts costing them money, then it's like, maybe I'll find another.
Funny how that works, right? Until it hits the wallet, it doesn't become real. Buttercup, great question. Good luck to you as you try to press this. And truly, I know there's a lot of restaurants and facilities around the country that would love to have somebody like you that cared enough to actually take the initiative to fix a violation. So great work. And we'll make sure we send you a link to the section of the food code that backs up what you have done there. All right, we'll go to another one. We have a couple more here, Kristin. We'll try to take up too much more of your time. So we're going to have that beach 7866 on because very frequent contributor to the questions. I think it's second appearance in this episode alone. So that beach 7866 borderline temperature readings. This is an interesting one too because I think it gets into the area of how, to put it bluntly, how much of a hard ass are you supposed to be versus, right? Where's the line? I'm a newer inspector, and sometimes I temp food and the temperature bounces around and doesn't actually really stabilize. Something with moving around between 135 or above or below 135 or 41, so below 41, above 135. I usually just make a comment on the report to adjust hot, cold holding in said units to hold a stable temperature. I don't feel comfortable requiring discards or reheating of food that's just borderline. My boss has told me that that's sound judgment. How do y'all handle this? I probably overthink and worry too much, but want to know how other inspections or jurisdictions handle this. There is no doubt that this particular contributor really does think deeply about their job, because we end up seeing lots of questions and outreach for feedback from them. So thank you. Keep that coming. But Kristin, what is the right line on that? So it's really close, but it's bouncing around a little bit. And how do you feel about the desire to not embargo or throw out food over that, but just advise them to tighten up a little bit?
Well, the food code says that your thermometers have to be calibrated within 2 degrees plus or minus. So that was always kind of my guideline, is if it's bouncing around but it stays within that 2 degrees. I know that the code says 41 or colder. That, if it's over 41, it's out. But you have to be an investigator, and you have to really ask a lot of questions to figure out whether it's truly an issue with the equipment. Is it truly an issue with the food? But if we always use calibrated equipment, but if you take that into consideration, that it may be 1 or 2 degrees off, if you're holding steady within 1 or 2 degrees, I would do the same thing that this inspector is doing, is make note of it. But I would also ask a lot of questions, because you can find a lot of things out by just asking questions, such as, was the food recently prepped? If they took not refrigerated tomatoes, chopped them up and stuck them in a cooler, maybe it hasn't reached temp yet. Maybe it's cooling. If they are in the middle of the wrench rush, that's not an excuse. But if you're opening and closing the doors a whole lot and it's hovering right at that exact temperature, the way refrigerators work is they blow the cold air around the inside. And so have they overloaded the refrigerator? Are they continuing, if it's like a make table where they have a pot of beans or some kind of a liquid, that are they stirring it continuously, or are they overfilling so that the top layer is not holding temp but the bottom layers are holding temp? So there's a lot of things you have to look at before you make that decision, that is this safe to serve, or is it something that needs to be thrown away? So but I feel like they're using good judgment.
So that bitch 7866 is doing the right thing. Your boss was right. And it really highlights there's always a fear in not just this profession, but one of the things when doing keynotes or talking around the country about AI is people have a natural apprehension that's going to replace them. Isn't this one of those examples that it helps illustrate why that's just not true for the job of an inspector? Because so much of what you do requires thoughtful consideration and judgment, doesn't it?
It does. It does definitely require a lot of judgment. And really, if you're in any doubt whatsoever, you really should make sure that the food is discarded. But there are a lot of, as much as you want it to be black and white, there's a lot of gray. And I can sit and discuss code with somebody, and we have different opinions on what the code is trying to say to us.
Yes.
Which doesn't seem like that doesn't seem like logical or reasonable. But sometimes it's just in how you read the code. So it sounds like this person is definitely using good judgment of, if it's hovering, they're definitely notating it, providing education. Education is very important. Making sure you offer them suggestions on how to make sure that they are not, inadvertently creating an unsafe environment for the food, or creating an environment where the food won't hold steady temperature. So.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. And again, it gets back to what all of you all do every day, which is you use judgment in sometimes less than ideal circumstances. We got time for a couple of more. This one's fun. This is from an EH person. So we're back. EH person here. Ate my dog's homework 29. And Ate My Dog's Homework 29 asks, local food inspectors, and I'm guessing from the South because it starts with y'all ever see your reports posted on local Facebook groups after they're made public? And so Ate My Dog's Homework goes on to say, my fellow local food inspectors, 3 of us in our department, will troll through local Facebook pages like City Foodies and things. One time, someone posted the cease and desist letter that I wrote for them operating without a license. It was a home-based vendor cooking and selling catfish, fried chicken, and flavorful desserts. It was written like an ad, flavorful desserts, advertising in her food in these groups. The comments ranged from people telling them to just apply for a license and people telling them to ignore the demons and keep fighting the good fight. It's amazing. I just saw a post from someone who found the inspection report for an establishment I had to close about a month ago. 17 violations observed. Most people were glad they were shut down, but I always find it amusing when people still make sarcastic comments like, wow, no bosses in sight, in reference to there being no person in charge from a food safety perspective. Anyone else see their work posted to Facebook groups, other social or even traditional media platforms, and what was that like? I feel like this is a real hot button and has been for years, hasn't it, Kristin? And I think one of the root causes is that all of your work is a public record. What's been your experience with online social media and media in general? And it is a burden that operators need to be aware of now, right? Because one comment on an inspection could be seized on and go viral.
Yeah, it is. You have to be really careful about what you write and making sure that you're only providing truthful comments and you only write what you see. Because people can take things too far. And our inspection reports had our names posted. And so I would see them, and sometimes it would be amusing, sometimes it would be cringy, some of the things you see. A lot of times when people are posting things like the cease and desist or, I can't believe they wrote me up for this, you're only seeing part of the story of what happened. Because they're always going to tell it through their own lens and their own viewpoint and how unfair that we are being. And so I would look and then always keep my mouth shut. And even now that I've not been doing that for almost 2 years now, I choose not to comment.
Which is smart, right? It also shows though how important the work that all of y'all do every day is, because most people go to work and the output of whatever happens in their day never sees the light of day. The media is not interested in it, so it speaks to the magnitude and the gravity of the importance of the job. How have you? A lot of this is political in my experience. I know I've told the story before from back, I believe, like 2004, where was working with the city of Houston on their databases and systems. And I got asked to come last minute to Houston because the mayor's office had demanded a meeting on behalf of the Restaurant Association to meet with the department to ostensibly gripe about the public disclosure website. And what was just so starkly obvious to me when I walked into that room, besides how tense it was, is that the mayor and all of their staff sat on the side of the table, like literally, not just figuratively, with the Restaurant Association. And so there's a lot of political pressure too, isn't there?
There is. It's really hard for an inspector, especially if you're in a highly politicized county, to, like, everybody knows everybody. And so everybody's got a friend. And your legislators, they're making the rules. They want to get reelected. They listen to everything that their constituents have to say. And when my friend gets picked on, when my friend has to pay late fees, and when my friend has to pay fees for re-inspections, and my friend gets a really particularly bad inspection, that then turns around and we can get called into the office to account for why we wrote up what we wrote. And that's hard when you feel like you're constantly trying to be on edge and you have to be able to back up what you're writing. But, we're out there trying to do the same job as making sure that everybody's providing safe food. An operator does not want to provide unsafe food either. But oftentimes the inspectors are looked up as an enemy, or as, we're just out to get you. We're out to look out and find the violations. And it's not about providing food when sometimes the public is looking at it. So it's hard.
It is, and I think this goes back to system as well, doesn't it? Because I know one of the things a lot of folks have told me is one of the things they like about having a system for doing their inspections from a technology perspective is that they actually, I know some agencies for a fact have tried to use the concept of canned or predefined comments to sort of standardize. Because the one thing I will grant operators is personality always plays into this, right? You might have an inspector who says observed a pest infestation and be pretty vanilla about what they describe, and then someone who says, observed roaches everywhere. The style matters, and do you think predefined comments is a legitimate usage to help sort of standardize the message and take the individuality out of, or not the individuality, but to add more consistency for operators?
It does add more consistency, and I do believe it's very, very helpful. I also think it's helpful, the ability to have those comments, but be able to adjust them as needed for a specific situation. So what we can do is we can have, you have a list of options in your drop down, but then once you choose the option, you can edit it to make it fit your specific situation.
It saves a lot of typing too.
It does. It saves typing, makes it go a lot quicker. Sometimes that canned comment is perfect and you don't need to make an adjustment, but every now and then it is necessary to add some additional context.
Absolutely. So, David, I think we've got time for one more. So let's skip down to number 10, and we will do one more here. By the way, ate my dog's homework 29. Thank you so much for the question. It was a good one. All right, we're on to the next one, and we're going to do the last one here from somebody. This is how they describe themselves: Maggie Linzer, layperson. So not in the environmental health space. And this one's sort of connected to media as well, just a slightly different genre. So we'll stick with the theme here. Have any of y'all's, man, we're getting a lot of y'all's today. Have any of y'all's jobs become harder or made more difficult because of how health inspectors are routinely, not sure I agree with the context here, but routinely villainized in movies and TV shows all the time? So that's the question, and the detail they added is, I don't know why, but recently I started thinking about that trope, how often I've seen in TV shows and movies, and the more I thought about it, the weirder and weirder it seemed to me that there was such a common trope in general among health inspectors. So many episodes of sitcoms or other shows in general that I've seen seem to just take it as a given that audiences will just naturally hate the nasty, evil health inspectors who agree with them, trying to shut everything down. But the more I've thought about it, the more bizarre it seems to me that that's become such a given idea amongst writers and producers in entertainment. Like, looking at it objectively, I would actually like a restaurant that had a pig running around loose in its kitchen and multiple cases of food poisoning very credibly traced back to it before you would shut it down if that was happening in the real world. So pretty lengthy commentary there. It's an interesting one, though. I guess, like, my summary take of it is it's probably not, or at least partly driven by the fact that there is, anytime you have a regulated-regulatee relationship, there will be some cat and mouse game and some apprehension, right? But they also are touching on what you talked about earlier, which is, like going about shutting a place down, and, how you go about that, where's the line, et cetera. But Do you think that generally pop culture and media does put the health inspectors in conflict or feared, or is overstating the case here, on Maggie's part?
I think that anything conflict sells.
Yes.
And so, they're gonna dramatize whatever they can dramatize. So I've had people come up to me and say, "Oh, I feel so sorry for them because you're here." And I'm like, "But I'm here to protect you." But I had a lady come up to me, and I mean, she was angry with me. Thinks she might have been drinking. I'm not certain, but she was not happy with me because I was inspecting. I might have told you this last year, but I was inspecting bottles of alcohol, looking for fruit flies. Fruit flies love alcohol, and I was picking them up by the base, and I was shining a flashlight in them, and I was looking to see if there were any dead bugs on the bottom of the bottle. And she came up to me as I was typing, and she was not happy with me because I was not wearing gloves to touch the bottles of alcohol. And I'm like, well, the food code doesn't require it. Are you mad at the bartender? The bartender, no, but you should be wearing gloves. And I don't understand. Like she was just like, you're constantly shedding skin cells. And I said, but I didn't even touch, like, I wasn't anywhere near the lip of the bottle. I know, I watched you, she said. I was like, well, I'm following the food code. I'm doing what the food code requires of me to do, which is not touch the pouring spout. And so there was no winning.
They just wanted to trip you up, right? They just wanted to just have something to antagonize you about.
That's exactly. She was trying to antagonize me, and it was kind of a silly thing. I mean, I almost felt like I was being punked because I couldn't believe she was making. It wasn't just a little comment; she was really making an issue of it. So, there's always going to be people. You're not going to make everybody happy. There's always going to be people, because typically health inspectors are government regulators, and anything government is bad.
Mm-hmm. And that's an unfair thing that gets laid on departments, is that you're anti-business. No, you're not. You're just anti-business is poisoning people.
Until something goes wrong. And when something goes wrong, and a lot of times people don't even know we exist until something goes wrong, which is sometimes a good thing. You want to stay under the radar. I don't want anything going wrong. I don't want anybody saying, where were you at, or what were you doing? So and why didn't you catch this, when our inspections are just a moment in time? It's just a snapshot of what we saw the day we were there. And so, for me, I was always really high on trying to provide education. At probably 99% of my inspections provide extra education and documentation. Document the education, document our comments, our conversations, anything that may help, in the future, be able to say, this is what we talked about, why we talked about it, and this is what I was trying to prevent.
Yeah, well said. And, it's interesting for everybody who's in the operator side. You can get a lot of value for the money you spend on your permit every year, because you have the ability to get ostensibly free consulting / training that you would have to pay a high price for somewhere else, right? Like, it's a real opportunity to actually let this person in, and you can actually get consulting that comes free with your permit, so to speak.
You do. You can really create a good, strong relationship with your inspector. It helps your inspector to know you understand and care about doing a good job. It helps you do better. It helps you serve safe food, and it helps you understand what perspective your inspector is coming from. What are they looking for? What kinds of things are a high concern for your inspector? And people pay a lot of money for food safety consultants to come in. Talk to your inspectors. Talk to them. We're people, and we want to see you succeed. But we want you to do it in a safe manner, not by cutting corners.
Well said. So Maggie, I think the upshot is that on the media angle is that it makes better television to have drama and conflict. The old inspector shows up, something crazy is going on in the restaurant, and hijinks ensue. So it's probably not much more than that. But as Kristin touched on, you also have the people that have a certain view of government get out of my life as well, and it takes all types to make the world go round. So Maggie Linzer, thanks for listening and thank you for the question. So Kristin, thanks for joining us as we kick off season 2 here. What all, with the agencies that you're working with, I'll throw you a curveball in closing. What do you tell an agency who maybe has a really old data system, or maybe they're still on paper, but it does still exist? What would you tell them after all the agencies you've worked with here as to why that the endeavor of getting upgraded makes sense from a data management system perspective?
Well, there are just so many options, and I'm only familiar with the system that I came with, but I feel like our system is so user friendly. It was so easy to train new inspectors. It was a very intuitive type of system where, from an inspection standpoint, you could go in and spend more time doing the inspection and less time writing versus the opposite, which some systems, the one that I came from, it took us so long to type up a report that we felt like we were wasting a lot of time typing reports up versus actually doing the inspections we were doing.
But
so
typing's not the job, right? It's just a necessary thing that has to get done. Yeah, I would. The team, because Krista's at HS, if you are facing sunset of an existing system or just need to move ahead into something more modern, give folks at HS GovTech a call. You'd be glad you did. And we will be introducing you to different agencies and what they're doing with tech over the course of this upcoming season, and really looking forward to that. Kristin, thank you for giving us an hour of your busy day. That was a lot of fun. I hope you'll come back again sometime in the future.
Thank you. I hope to have.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Kristin Geary from Missouri, HS GovTech's own. Thank you all so much for all of the questions while we were on a break between the two seasons. Please keep them coming beyond at hscloudsuite.com, or you could just go down to the comments of wherever you're listening or watching this now. We will get to you. And also, excuse me, if you want to be on the show, we do still have some episodes for later this year that are available for folks to come in and be the guests on and have a conversation with. If you'd like to be on, or there's a topic you think we're not talking about that we should be, email us as well, please, and we'll reach out to you, and you could find yourself in the seat that Kristin just was in for the last hour. For all of us here at the Beyond Data Management Podcast, powered every week by HS GovTech, I'm Cameron Garrison. Great to be back. Thanks for joining us for the debut of Season 2, and we'll see you next Tuesday.